The man who set his enemy a place at the table. On hospitality to the refused. A man in his 40th year set his worst enemy a place at his table. The enemy was real. He was a man in the same town. They had hated each other for 20 years over a matter that, by the 40th year, neither of them could quite remember the origin of. They had not spoken in 15 years. They had crossed the street to avoid each other. They had refused to attend the same weddings, the same funerals, the same town meetings. The man had been certain for 20 years that the enemy was the worst person in the town. The setting of the place at the table came on him one evening without warning. He had been eating alone, as he often did, his wife having died some years before. He had set out one plate and one cup and one knife. He had looked at the empty chair across from him. He had been about to begin eating. And then, without thinking about it, he had stood up, gone to the cupboard, and brought out a second plate, a second cup, a second knife. He had set them across from his own. He had served onto the second plate a portion of the same stew he was eating himself. He had sat down. He had looked at the second plate. He had spoken aloud into the room, "If you would come, you would eat." The enemy did not come. The man ate. The second plate sat full. After his meal, he had taken the second plate to the back step and given the food to the dog and washed the plate and put it away. He did this the next night, and the next, and the next. For 10 years, he set the enemy a place at his table. He cooked food the enemy was known to like. He set out wine the enemy was known to drink. He kept the chair clean. He spoke, before each meal, the same sentence into the air: "If you would come, you would eat." The enemy did not come. The townspeople who eventually heard about it from the man's neighbours thought he had gone strange. They said it among themselves. They did not say it to the man. The man did not in any other way behave strangely. He continued his work. He went to the market. He attended the town meetings, though never on the same nights as the enemy. In the 10th year, on a winter evening, the enemy came to the door. He had grown old. He was thinner than the man remembered. He had a slight tremor in his hand. He did not say anything at the door. He simply stood there. The man opened the door wider. The enemy came in. They ate in silence. The food on the second plate was, that night, exactly what the enemy would have chosen. The wine was his wine. The man had been cooking this meal, one variation on it, for 10 years. He had become, by accident or by intent, the kind of cook who could feed the man across the table from him. After the meal, the enemy stood up. He did not speak. He took the second plate to the sink, washed it himself, and set it on the rack. He took the second cup. He took the second knife. He turned to the man. He said, "Finally, I have been hungry for 10 years." He left. The man sat in the empty kitchen until very late. He understood then what he had been doing for 10 years. He had not been waiting for his enemy. He had been feeding, every night, the part of himself that was the enemy, the part he had refused, the part he had crossed the street to avoid, the part he had not spoken to for 15 years. The enemy in the town had been the mirror. The hatred had been the recognition. The setting of the place at the table had been the beginning of taking back what he had cast out. He had become, over 10 years, the cook who could feed his own shadow. When the enemy in the flesh had at last arrived, he had eaten not as a stranger, but as the part of the man that had been hungry for a decade. The man wept. He wept for a long time. He had not understood before that the worst person in the town had been, in some intimate sense, the worst part of himself, walking the streets in another body. He set the place at the table for the rest of his life. The enemy came back occasionally, not often, perhaps twice a year. They never spoke. They ate. The enemy washed his own plate. The enemy left. When the enemy died, 10 years later, the man wept again. He kept setting the place. The enemy did not stop coming exactly. The man would, on certain evenings, feel the second chair occupied in a way he could not have explained. He would speak the sentence anyway. He would eat. He had, by then, fed his shadow for so long that it no longer needed a body to come to dinner. The enemy is not, in the deepest sense, in the Town, the enemy, is the part of you that walks in. Another body, hungry, the setting of the place at the table is the beginning of taking back what you cast. Out, the enemy will come, eventually, he has been. Hungry too, the cooking is the work, the hospitality is the cure.